Imagine you were just, sitting in a quiet room reading a book.
Right, just totally normal.
Yeah, totally normal. Black text, white paper, standard margins. Everything feels completely ordinary.
But then something shifts, right?
Exactly. As your eyes are moving across the paragraph, you start to hear a melody.
Oh, that is such a wild feeling.
It really is. Not in the room, obviously, but in your head. Just this faint, familiar rhythm pulsing right beneath the prose.
Even though not a single note of music is ever actually mentioned on the page.
Right. And it's an eerie feeling, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's like when the rhythm of the written word starts, I don't know, actively tricking your auditory cortex.
Yeah.
You're reading this highly descriptive story about a dark, muddy river or maybe a rain-slicked city street, and your brain is suddenly almost involuntarily supplying a soundtrack you've known for years.
That is exactly the sensation we are talking about today. And that profound cognitive dissonance is the brilliant, almost magical premise behind the anthology we are doing a deep dive into today.
It's a fantastic collection.
It really is. So the book is called What the Ledger Kept, 6 stories inspired by songs, and it's written by Martin Francom.
Right, and Francom's background is so interesting here.
Oh, honestly fascinating.
Right.
Just to give you a little context, he is a retired pharmacist and a former programmer.
Which is a detail that, frankly, completely unlocks how these stories function.
How so?
Well, think about it. He spent decades dealing with the strict, unforgiving logic of computer code.
Oh.
And, the precise high-stakes chemistry of medical prescriptions. And then he found his creative voice with the Kitsap Literary Arts and Writers Guild.
Yeah, now he's writing everything from steampunk adventures to Southern Gothic Noir.
Exactly. But he brought that programmer's brain with him. He doesn't just write narratives, he constructs them with this forensic, almost surgical precision.
He really builds them from the ground up. And I mean, that brings us to the mission for our deep dive today.
A big mission.
Yes. So Francom has written 6 distinct short stories in this collection. Each one is built entirely on the underlying structural skeleton of a famous, legendary song.
But, and this is the absolute most crucial part, the songs are not named until the very last page of each story.
Right. It's like this architecture of omission.
That's a great way to put it. He gives you the walls, the floor, the shadows in the room, but he hides the blueprint until the very end.
Which means we really need to set our golden rule for today, right now.
We definitely do.
To preserve the magic of this book for you, we are absolutely not going to spoil the names of these songs.
Not a single
We
one.
will not say them out loud. Instead, our goal is to act as your teaser. We're going to explore the vivid details, the heavy atmospheres, and the shared themes of these stories to give you just enough clues to play detective.
Because we want the discovery of the music to be part of the fun of you actually picking up the book.
Exactly.
And it is a fantastic challenge for us to tackle, honestly. We have to talk about the exact shape of the ghost without ever once whispering its name.
Right. So let's start where the heat is heavy and the history is even heavier. Let's start down in the American South, because 2 of these stories are deeply rooted in the brutal math of survival and systemic silence in that region.
Good place to start.
The first one we're looking at is called What the River Kept.
Okay, yes. This one opens in the Mississippi Delta during just a sweltering August.
Oh, you can feel the heat in the writing.
You really can. Francom describes the Tallahatchie River not just as water, but as a, quote, slow brown muscle moving through silt.
Wow.
Yeah, the atmosphere is just suffocating. It is 98 degrees, the humidity is off the charts, and the air literally smells like rotting catfish and scorched weeds.
Gross, but evocative.
Exactly. And into this incredibly heavy environment, we meet a Department of Transportation crew.
Right, there's Miller, an older guy named Gidley, and a diver named Arispe.
Yep. They're anchored on a twin-engine barge, running side-scan sonar near an old bridge footing, and they find an anomaly down in the mud.
A rusted, mud-filled metal trunk, right?
Exactly. And Arispe has to go down into that pitch-black, dangerous water to hoist it up.
But the trunk is really just the setup, isn't it?
It is. While the discovery of this physical trunk by the bridge is the catalyst for the narrative, the real story actually hinges on a county clerk named Estelle.
Right, the story flashes back to 1967.
Yeah. And Estelle literally alters an official legal ledger. She trades exactly 36 words of truth to buy a safe, quiet life for a man named Tommy.
Just 36 words.
That's it. She buys him a brick house, a clean record, and a life where he dies peacefully decades later, just, changing a spark plug on his lawnmower.
Wait, I need to pause here because this mechanism is wild.
Hmm.
How does a 24-year-old clerk just trade 36 words and completely change a man's destiny?
It seems crazy now, right?
Yeah, does she just erase a crime?
She doesn't just erase a crime, she leverages the analog reality of the 1960s.
Right.
Before digital databases, reality in a rural county was simply whatever was written in the clerk's massive bound books.
Wow, so true.
If you strike a line or alter a date in that one specific physical ledger, a person's entire history shifts.
That is so powerful.
She believed, at 24, that she could balance a family's survival against a single line of ink. But as Francom beautifully writes, the debt sat in the paper, accumulating in the dark, just waiting for the river to run low enough to show the bones.
Okay, let's unpack this. In this story, and really in this whole section, we have an original, incredibly famous song driving the narrative.
I do.
I mean, think about throwing something off the Tallahatchie Bridge. But it's like Francom is taking the camera off the flashy lead singer of the song and panning over to the exhausted background extras.
Yes.
Why do you think he focuses on the mundane paperwork, the physical ledgers, the county clerks, instead of the dramatic, tragic action that usually makes up a Southern Gothic ballad?
What's fascinating here is that the ledger represents the hidden cost of these tragedies. Official records, especially in these historically complex settings, are almost always a performance. They hide what private conscience keeps. The original songs usually focus on the drama, the tragedy on the bridge, the shocking twist.
The loud parts.
Exactly. Francom is asking a completely different question. Who swept up afterward? Who filed the paperwork?
Oh, that's so good.
He is exploring the people the original songs never thought to ask about, showing us that systemic silence requires a very diligent bookkeeper.
That is such a haunting way to look at it. The bookkeepers of tragedy.
Yeah.
And that idea of complicity transitions us perfectly from the muddy banks of the Tallahatchie to another kind of Southern ledger in 1925 New Orleans.
Oh, the Meridian Ledger.
Yes, the story is called the Meridian Ledger. Here we meet Josephine. She is a seamstress and a midwife operating deep in the French Quarter's economic underworld.
And what struck me about Josephine is her illusion of safety.
Exactly.
She genuinely thinks her personal ledger is balanced because she pays her rent on the first of every month in clean, crisp paper dollar bills.
Right. She thinks because her money is clean, her conscience is clean.
She definitely clings to that illusion. Until a girl named Della Dawn walks into her shop.
Yeah, Della.
Della is carrying this incredibly specific, tragic artifact. It's a gray, pulp paper suitcase with a rusted tin latch tied together with hemp rope.
So vivid.
She is fresh off the road from Mississippi, and she is bound for a 3-story entrapment house on St. Claude Avenue.
And Josephine knows exactly what that house is.
Oh, she does. She describes it clinically, floor by floor. The ground floor has a piano with 2 dead keys.
Wow.
The second floor is where men lose their grocery money at green gambling tables.
It just paints such a picture.
And the third floor has cream wallpaper with blue flowers, and that is where the real entrapment happens. It's the kind of house mothers warn their children about.
Right.
And Josephine tries to warn Della. She tells her, "You can survive this town, girl. I did."
But survival and safety aren't the same thing, are they?
Not at all.
Especially when you're a young girl with $30 and nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Josephine gives the warning, but then she just watches her leave. Josephine's silence after that warning becomes her complicity.
Precisely. She balances her own ledger by staying quiet.
It's incredibly heavy.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears from these metaphorical societal traps in the hot South to literal physical buildings that swallow their inhabitants whole.
Let's do it.
This moves us away from the heat and into the cold.
We are going to the absolute bitter cold of a Pacific Northwest Gothic setting in a story called The Permanent Guest.
This is the one that genuinely gave me chills.
Oh, me too.
We follow Arthur, who is this burned-out Seattle journalist. He's got these terrible city tremors. His mind is described as being like a telegraph wire in a gale.
What a great line.
Right. He arrives at this grand mountain lodge called Helsinger Crest to investigate a disappearance. But the lodge doesn't attack him. It slowly absorbs him.
It's an assault of extreme luxury and sensory overload. It's the sparkling mineral water, the heavy woolens they wrap him in, the giant cedar fires burning in the hearth. He sits down with his gold-nibbed Parker Vacuumatic pen to write his story. And finally, his hand just goes completely still.
He just freezes.
He achieves the stillness of stone, And he's constantly attended to by Valerie, the hostess, who pours drinks from a silver cup and assures him there is no hurry.
But hold on, the central mechanic of this lodge, the thing that makes it a trap, is that the door only works in one direction.
Yes.
What does that actually mean in the context of the story? Is it a literal locked door, or is it a psychological trap?
It is a terrifying blend of both. You can enter freely, you can be welcomed with immense warmth, ceremony, and perhaps even a feast with steely knives.
I see what you did there.
But when you try to leave, the architecture itself, both physical and supernatural, resists you. Your body begins to choose the comfort of the trap over the cold reality outside. The gate swings shut, and you are programmed to remain.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like Francom is moving a classic horror movie out of a haunted house and into an Excel spreadsheet.
That's exactly it.
In both this lodge and the next story we'll talk about, the characters are trapped by the sheer mechanics of the building and the rigid rules of the people running it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, particularly with the permanent guest, we see Francom's true structural genius.
How so?
Well, think about the clues we just discussed. A traveler arriving exhausted, a welcoming ceremony, realizing you can check out of your routine, but you can never actually leave the building.
Right.
The legendary rock anthem that inspired this story was originally set in the blistering heat of the Sonoran Desert. You picture bleached stucco, warm desert wind, and palm trees.
Okay.
But Francom took that exact narrative skeleton and dropped it into the freezing wet timber country of the Cascades. He proves that a brilliant narrative architecture works no matter how you dress it.
That is so true.
The mechanism of the trap functions flawlessly, whether it's desert heat or Madrona heartwood.
A trap is a trap, no matter the weather. You just get caught wearing different clothes.
Exactly.
And speaking of different clothes, Francom contrasts that grand, supernatural mountain lodge with the most mundane, gritty, modern setting you can imagine in the story ledger of Pond to Be.
Yes, we move from a luxurious mountain retreat to a brutal urban tenement. Frank is the superintendent of this building. He's been there for 22 years.
A long time.
The story opens with Frank standing on a wet street, watching police cruisers pull away after a terrible, unnamed incident in apartment 2B.
And Frank eventually goes down to the basement.
Yes, a basement that holds that particular damp cold that basements only seem to hold right before dawn.
Ugh, I know exactly that feeling.
Right. And hidden down there, he finds a notebook. It belonged to an 8-year-old boy who lived in 2B. And this notebook is sealed tight with black electrical tape. The ends literally melted together with a lighter.
I found that detail so striking. I mean, why melt the tape?
Because when you live in poverty and chaos, nothing is truly yours unless it is impenetrable. It is a deliberate, incredibly thorough seal made by a child who is desperately trying to preserve a record of his reality.
And when Frank finally cuts it open, he doesn't find a standard Dear Diary entry. He finds what the boy titled The Rule for the White Knight.
Yeah.
It is a child's clinical, coded calculation for surviving his environment.
The boy is treating the unpredictable, dangerous adults around him as chess pieces.
But why chess, though? Why not just write down what happened?
Because chess has rigid, unbreakable rules, and the adults in his life do not. To survive, the child maps the adults to a board.
Oh, wow.
He calculates that he needs to keep the White Knight, who represents Frank, the superintendent with the master keys in the game, even if Frank doesn't know he's playing.
So smart.
The boy realized that Frank's willingness to look the other way when things got bad upstairs wasn't stupidity. It was a deliberate choice.
And the 8-year-old calculated that cowardly choice into his own survival system is devastating. The ledger here isn't a historical document in a courthouse. It's a desperate, real-time strategy guide for navigating a deeply hostile architecture.
Exactly. We've talked about people trapped by the silence of society and people trapped by the physical walls of buildings, which brings us to the final thematic grouping.
Right, let's move to our final section, where we look at characters who aren't necessarily trapped anymore, but who have finally reached the end of their respective roads.
Yes, the aftermath.
We are looking at how they handle the quiet, heavy aftermath.
We travel to the eastern Kentucky hill country for a story called Copperhead Oak. This narrative centers around a 3-generation family criminal operation, hidden deep in a cold, isolated mountain hollow.
We are following Lady Voss. She is an FBI agent, but her own family land is deeply entangled in the very history she has been sent to adjudicate.
It's messy.
Very. She's standing out in the cold woods by a massive white oak tree holding a cracked leather-field ledger from 1943.
And that ledger is the ultimate proof of the crime. It details everything. But instead of turning it in, instead of driving back to Frankfurt and delivering it to her superiors, she takes it to a property line.
Yeah.
She buries the ledger deep in the dirt on a surveyor's pin. As Francom writes, she delivers justice at a slant.
Justice at a slant. I kept thinking about that phrase. She's law enforcement, but she chooses to bury the evidence. Why does burying it solve anything?
Because she recognizes that the law arriving wouldn't bring peace. It would just become completely entangled in the violent history it's meant to police.
Ah, I see.
The ledger itself is a weapon. If it survives, the cycle of retribution survives. So she buries it to end the bloodline's curse. It is a quiet, definitive choice to stop the music.
And speaking of quiet, definitive choices, that brings us to the final story in the anthology, The Last Set. We leave the Kentucky woods and arrive on a wet, slushy December night in 1946 Harlem.
We meet Lige Carter. He is a veteran jazz pianist who, right in the middle of a gig, realizes that his hands are finally permanently done.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
He misses a vital note, his joints completely resist him, and he just knows in his bones that it's over.
The scene in the dressing room afterward is so visually striking. His singer, May, comes in.
Yeah.
She's wearing a sequin dress, she's holding a glass of bourbon, and she has already found the carbon copy of a recording contract in his coat. A contract from Decca Records with someone else's name at the top.
She knows.
She knows he's being replaced. She knows his hands are failing.
And the heartbreak is entirely in what isn't said. She just takes the contract and tears it in half.
There's no screaming argument, no thrown glasses, just mutual heavy silence.
Yeah, complete silence.
May walks out, the door swings shut with this absolute finality. Lige picks up the torn pieces of the Decca Records contract, folds them together, and puts them in his pocket next to, as Francom beautifully puts it, her absence.
Such a good line.
The story ends with Lige sitting alone on a freezing 125th Street subway platform at 2:45 in the morning. He has nowhere to be. He's just listening to someone else play a beautiful piano melody that is drifting down through a ventilation grate from the street above.
The night wasn't finished with him yet, but his time as the player certainly was. It is a profound, lingering image of aftermath.
So what does this all mean? I have to push back a little on the whole conceptual framework of this anthology. Are these stories really just literary covers of famous songs? Like a tribute band playing a gig in a library? Because honestly, listening to someone else's music through a dirty subway grate feels so fundamentally different from the vibrant energy of a classic jazz standard. Do these stories actually change how you will hear the original music once you figure out what the song is?
This raises an important question about the nature of adaptation itself, and I would argue very strongly that these are absolutely not literal covers. They are emotional translations. Let's look closely at Lige Carter's story. Francom notes in the text that the jazz standard that inspired this story doesn't have a loud confrontation or an angry accusation in its lyrics.
Right.
It is just the slow, melancholy recognition that a romance or an era is over. Look at the time, 2:45 in the morning. Lige's story captures the exact emotional arc of that melancholic jazz standard.
It's a mood.
Exactly. It's the held note before a decision, the quiet heartbreak of the decision itself, and the long, lonely walk home afterward.
That makes total sense. He's capturing the mood, not just the plot.
When you eventually identify the song at the end of the chapter, you realize Francom hasn't just rewritten the lyrics into prose. He has transcribed the silence between the notes.
Wow.
It absolutely changes how you hear the song moving forward because you are no longer just passively listening to a singer croon into a microphone. You are suddenly feeling the physical weight of the piano player's failing hands.
Transcribing the silence between the notes. That is such a perfect way to summarize what this entire collection accomplishes.
It really is.
6 hidden ledgers. 6 entirely distinct worlds, ranging from the sweltering, muddy Mississippi Delta to a freezing subway platform in 1940s Harlem. And all of them are secretly held up by the invisible architecture of classic, unforgettable songs.
It really is a marvel of narrative construction. The songs function exactly like skeletons. They are completely invisible from the outside, but they are utterly responsible for every single thing that stands upright in the story.
And that brings us back to you, the listener.
Yes, the ultimate puzzle.
The ultimate puzzle of this deep dive is still unsolved. We kept our promise. We didn't name a single song.
Not why.
If you want to know the actual titles of the legendary rock anthems, the melancholic jazz standards, and the tragic folk ballads that inspired these deep, gripping narratives, you need to pick up a copy of What the Ledger Kept by Martin Francom.
You have to experience those subtle aha moments for yourself when the rhythm of the prose suddenly perfectly matches a melody you've known your whole life.
I couldn't agree more.
I highly recommend reading them in a quiet room and just waiting for the music to inevitably start playing in your head.
It is an unforgettable reading experience. So we'll leave you with this final lingering thought to mull over today. Think about your absolute favorite song,
Yeah, the one you know every word to.
the one you've played 1,000 times in your car. Now ask yourself, what hidden ledger is keeping track of its story in the background?
Good question.
While you're completely focused on the singer in the spotlight, who is the unseen character in the shadows, quietly sweeping up the floor after the music stops and the crowd goes home.
Every song has a ledger. You just have to know where to look.
Remember how we started? Black text, white paper, and a melody rising from the page.
Oh.
Go find out what your favorite songs have been hiding all these years. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.